All right, welcome back to Mastering Defense Infrastructure. I'm Darian Macy.
And I'm Jessica Bottlebrush. Good to be here. Today's episode really gets into the nuts and bolts of what actually keeps the defense estate ticking, everything from logistics and fuel to advanced comms and command centers.
Yeah, Jess, if you've been following along since the beginning, you'll know we've touched on a heap of capability upgrades and project delivery lessons. But the strategic context is moving at pace. The 2024 National Defense Strategy and the Big Defense Strategic Review, DSR for short, they've reset the game compared to that 2016 white paper, right?
Totally. We used to have this kind of comfort zone, thinking we had a long lead time before any new major threats. But now, especially with Indo-Pacific tensions and, well, that whole warning time thing just shrinking, it's all about resilience and acceleration. It's a pivot to must be ready yesterday, not in a few years.
Yeah, the urgency is palpable. I actually noticed this after I set up DECnet. After the DSR came out, the nature of the questions we'd get in, both from people in defense and in industry, shifted. It was a lot less what might come up in 10 years and a lot more, which bases have surge logistics infrastructure where expand staging accommodation. If something kicks off, what's the status of the current base upgrades in the north? That urgency, honestly, it's something I hadn't seen since my days in uniform in the 2000s.
And you see it in the investment pattern too. It's no longer just about steady, broad-based improvements. Now the priorities, whether it's theatre logistics, missile assembly infrastructure, or sovereign comms, are driven by this sense of needing to plug the most critical risk gaps fast. Let's dig into the actual backbone projects making this shift real, the supply and sustainment side. JP8288, that's the big ticket for theatre logistics. I actually spent part of my early career out at Learmonth, so this one's kind of close to my heart. The Exmouth node, that's Work Package 2.1, has become a real focal point, hasn't it?
Absolutely. Think of it as moving from a handful of mega depots to a more dispersed web of nodes. Like constructing this logistics hub at Exmouth, essential infrastructure, hard stands, the works, means not relying on a handful of big supply points. Instead, you've got distributed survivable support up the top of the country. That's a hardening of posture, makes it much, much harder for any adversary to knock out supply lines in one strike.
Exactly. And it's not just about storing widgets when they finish those fuel upgrades at Learmonth, right? The operational difference during joint exercises will be noticeable. Suddenly you can actually keep aircraft on station longer, surge during an emergency, or without scrambling to fill the tanks or driving back to Perth for backup fuel. It sounds simple, but it's the difference between being a staging ground and being a real regional enabler.
You're talking about the Defence Fuel Transformation Program, DFTP, that's replacing aging tanks, adding redundancy, replacing pipes, and integrating more stringent safety and compliance. People don't get how pivotal that is. Back in the day, a single point of fuel failure in the north would have meant game over for a whole bunch of ops. DSR flagged it clear as day. Resilient fuel means resilient force.
Exactly. And leadership is pretty public about it. Strong logistics and fuel networks are frontline deterrents. It's not much use having all the kit in the world if you can't move or refuel it under pressure.
All right, let's talk about the missile age, the guided weapons and EO infrastructure. This is seriously next level compared with 2016. We're building a missile ecosystem, not just a shopping list, right?
Yep. JP292 for missile and EO storage. Tranche 1 is at Orchard Hills, Amberley, Stirling and Meyerbat. They're building new hardened bunkers at all the right sites. And Tranche 2 will go beyond that to Tyndall, Gingen, Wimmera, Exmouth, Townsville and Twofold Bay. Why? Because dispersing those stockpiles across several secure locations means we don't risk our whole inventory on one fence line. It's about defending against both strikes and disruption. Plus, it shows the US and AUKUS partners we can pull our weight in the alliance, logistically speaking.
And the manufacturing shift is massive. The Kongsberg factory at Newcastle, Naval Strike Missile, Joint Strike Missile, only other place they build these outside Norway. Not just for our own long-range strike, but also for rapid resupply in the Indo-Pacific context. Takes us from we import everything, wait our turn in the global queue, to hey, we make the stuff for us and allies alike.
Don't forget Mulwala and Benalla. Those investments mean we're actually scaling up production of things like propellants and artillery shells here. It's a sovereignty play, pure and simple. Also, in any conflict, local production will mean staying in the fight longer, no more fingers crossed logistics hoping for friendly shipping lanes.
Right. It's about deterrence by denial. Any adversary looking at Australia now has to realise we're just not the stockpile lightweights anymore. With this kind of arsenal infrastructure, we're both a regional arsenal and an AUKUS launch pad, not a consumer at the back of the line. The old wait and hope model has been replaced properly.
Okay, so supplying guided weapons are nothing without the nervous system. That's where space and C4ISR come in. We're talking the projects like SPA 9102, Sovereign SATCOM, and JP 9101, better known as Project Phoenix for high-frequency comms. Both are getting overhauled and not a moment too soon.
Absolutely right. The old reliance on, say, US satellites feels very last decade. Now, the focus is on sovereign layered comms solutions because space is looking more and more contested, right? The SATCOM plans shifted, more about resilient UHF in the short term and building out from there so you're not just hoping the big birds up there aren't jammed or shot out.
It's interesting. HF radio bounce signals sound like old tech. But as Phoenix is showing, in a blackout or satellite-denied scenario, it's absolutely essential. And those upgrades, Harold Holt at Exmouth, Harts Range, the node at Mount Bundy, Townsville, and the Riverina are all building in layers of fallback. If any one system is knocked out, there's another ready to ensure command persists.
Yeah, and from the industry side, the move to a distributed and resilient architecture opens up a pile of opportunity, especially for companies equipped to build robust ground stations, do payload integration, you name it. Latest briefings I sat in on, the message was clear. Australian contractors need to be positioning for these evolving projects, not waiting for the old fixed model to revive. If you can support secure, sovereign comms, you're in.
The new gold standard isn't just connectivity, it's endurance, redundancy, and the ability to withstand an attack on more than one front. Classic lessons you'd expect from the DSR shift.
All right, Jess, let's tie this back to the connective tissue. Command, control, and digital backbone. Expanding HQ JOC at Bungendore is central here. It's not just about putting up more walls, it's about building an HQ that can actually run multi-domain ops at tempo. Integrate with our partners, handle cyber, space, land, sea, air, all at once.
Absolutely, and it's not just the head office stuff. ESTJ 911 for WR fighting networks, rolling out secure ICT nodes and specialist upgrades like the SCIF at Borneo Barracks are all about making sure that any force element anywhere is plugged in, protected and responsive. I once delivered a project at a pretty remote NT site where we had to totally overhaul the secure comms and cyber hardening, basically overnight. Got a call one morning. Sorry, new threat profile. We'll need full cyber upgrades before we finish and we need them ASAP. Changed everything on the fly, design, schedule, even the risk register.
It's funny. 10 years ago, we barely had cyber on the design scope for infrastructure. Now it's probably the first dimension everyone asks about. You can't have a world-class strike missile if the network feeding targeting data gets hacked or the HQ can't issue secure orders. This stuff's as vital as the runway, probably more.
This is a good place to shift gears to something our listeners frequently ask. How are all these projects actually being delivered? I mean, it's not a one-size-fits-all. You've got construct-only, D&C, EPC models. Each one suits a different set of requirements and strategic goals, right?
Spot on. Take simple works, roads, upgrades to basic facilities, pipe works. These often go construct only. Principal holds the design, contractor just builds to spec. Seen that a lot on basic estate upgrades, and it keeps risk clean and control tight. But if you walk into a complex upgrade, say a GWEO manufacturing facility or base redevelopment, that's often D&C or full EPC. Means the contractor does the engineering, procurement and build, sometimes even hands you the keys to a ready-to-go asset at the end.
And contract management, right? Defence uses its own suite, the Defence Suite of Facilities contracts, which really hammer home the spirit of collaboration. Projects fall over fastest when suddenly everyone gets adversarial. Best outcomes, especially on multi-year high-stakes stuff, come from keeping lines of communication open, not drawing up more and more inflexible penalties in the contract.
Yeah, and don't forget the DIPRAC framework, the 8 domains of project risk. It's a game changer for contingency and risk sharing. If you build your delivery approach off the DIPRAC categories, you're a lot less likely to get caught flat-footed, especially with today's market disruptions and risk profiles. Understanding these models and the culture around them is essential for anyone in the defence infrastructure sector now.
Which brings us to the big messy end, procurement risk. The landscape is just so much more interconnected and fraught these days. Cybersecurity, supplier vetting, sovereignty. You have to de-risk at every layer. The old tick and flick isn't going to fly with the scale of spending now.
Yeah, and with the CPRs, the Commonwealth procurement rules, plus new layers like social procurement and sustainability metrics, the process can feel like a minefield, but the intent is clear. Transparent, value for money, competitive procurement that strengthens the sovereign supply chain, not just lowest price wins.
And the social procurement priorities, Indigenous procurement, gender equality, local industry and so on, those run all the way down the chain. It can make compliance management a full-time job in itself, especially when every subby has to follow those obligations too. The upside, though, is we're actually seeing more diversity in who gets to participate and hopefully more innovation as well.
Absolutely, but it creates pressure points too. I remember during the first waves of COVID, when we were trying to keep projects moving on the defence estate, suddenly all those contract administration choices and risk allocations got stress tested in real time. Lessons learned? Good contract management, built-in flexibility, and supply chain visibility are what help you get through a crisis. Not just what's on the contract, but the quality of the relationships. Trust, transparency, quick comms. You just can't understate it.
That feels like a good place to wrap for today. We've touched on how the 2024 strategy is changing the types of assets we need, where we build them, and how we buy and manage them. It's a lot, but those are exactly the enablers that'll make or break our defence posture over the next decade.
Absolutely. And to everyone listening, these projects are all about resilience, partnership, and genuine capability. That's what we'll keep diving into in future episodes. Jess, thanks for another great chat.
Thank you, Darian, and thanks to everyone for tuning in. See you next time for more deep dives on defence infrastructure.
Take care, everyone.